So, welcome to track 1. Make sure you're still in track 1, and this is 4 p.m. All right, glad you're here, and we're here to talk about STEM. It's kind of an interesting topic. And this is, go to the next slide here. Just make sure this didn't work. There we go. Now we go. All right. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, my name is Dave Schwartzberg. I also go by the handle of Heel. I work for Mobile Iron. Thank you, Mobile Iron, for sponsoring my trip out here. I'm the senior manager of security and privacy there. There is my Twitter handle. And Chris, would you like to announce your introduce yourself?
And I'm Chris Sistrunk. I work for FireEye.
Oh, that one, you hit the next button already.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't ready for that.
There's your.
So we, in the spirit of the political kind of weather that we're in these days, we decided to have some kind of slogan that we're going to be campaigning on. And my slogan is that we leave no child's email behind, and we should give them all their own server.
And I'm Chris Sistrunk, running with this idea, this campaign for STEM, make STEM great again. I work for FireEye, and I'm SCADA guy. This is way out of my wheelhouse. We're talking about education here. But I had a really funny tweet. So we're going to build a firewall, and IT is going to pay for it. Make SCADA great again.
He does the voices.
USB, 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 USB. All right.
So let's talk about STEM a little bit. A lot of you people probably heard the term already. You know, it means science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a commonly used term. There's a lot of budget money around this. There's some programs that are created to add curriculum within everything from elementary school all the way up to higher education, and it's a really big focus globally. And if you kind of think about it, like, when did this term come about? Well, it was back in 1997. The National Science Foundation first, while kind of discussing on how do we need to be more competitive with the other education, like, for example, I think Singapore was like one of the big countries that we were trying to compete with, and we needed to get that type of knowledge into the hands of the younger people to have more careers, because we kept really outsourcing a lot of it, and we still do today. So it became very, very popular during that teacher education collaborative conference that they had. So then in 2010, there's somebody came up with the term of STEAM. So they wanted to include art in that. And that's great. I love art, and there's a lot of people that do hacking, that are technical people that do a lot of cool things with art, and even graphic design is very technical. But STEAM is also another one of the terms that are out there. And in fact, in 2014, in the Huffington Post, somebody wrote an article of, well, STEM is great, but we need STEAM and STREAM. So they lumped in reading as well. And the term just keeps kind of blossoming. One of the things that when I was talking to Chris about this is I'm much more STEM focused. It doesn't mean I don't believe art or reading is important, but you can't do everything well. You got to kind of pick a few of these things.
Yeah, well, you need hacker logos, like vulnerability logos. Ronnie, I know he does those. The art part of it, you got to make those funny logos to represent your vulnerability that you found. So. But some STEM in the United States, President Obama has been campaigning about it for a while, put a lot of money towards it. He had, this is a really great quote, it's an approach to the world, a critical way to understand and explore and engage with the world, then have the capacity to change that world. What does that sound like? Hack the planet. So we were talking in the back channel. I was just on Google. We're just shooting the breeze, and we started talking about STEM and hacking, and so I don't know if you guys can read that, but basically it's like, I've been going over your idea for STEM or STEM or STEME, or that's interesting.
If I can interject here, we were trying to come up with an interesting kind of acronym that, when pronounced, would be uniquely recognizable, so we're going through the iterations. When we came up with METHS, we kind of decided we didn't want to say, hey kids, did you go to your Mets class today?
Yeah.
Little Breaking Bad.
Myths. So
That one.
so he says, should we make this talk, make STEM great again? And I thought he nailed it with that, the political thing back in March. So so what's this STEM thing? What are you talking about, Willis? We present to you
Science, technology, engineering, hacking, and math. Thank you. Right. You're all at a hacker conference, whether you are a hacker that was self-anointed or anointed by a crew, or whether you're out there doing ethical hacking or questionable hacking. This concept is really for anyone who embraces these concepts, because when you think of hacking, like the technology that we use, there's a lot of applied sciences, but hacking is also an application of any one of those other 4 disciplines within STEM. So it just feels appropriate that we also include it within the acronym.
So we'll go have an overview. Reasons for including hacking in regular STEM programs. Hacking education groups are emerging. We're going to go over several of those groups and organizations. And we've got some case studies where we've found examples of hacking education, especially for young kids. And then we're going to go over some of the challenges that hacking education faces. So, it starts out as a hobby, right? Hacking, 30 years ago, right? You had, it was like a hobby. You had, bulletin boards and modems, and you could maybe download the Anarchist Cookbook off the BBS, and then, stuff like that. It wasn't really something that you learned in school. Even computers back in school were not really there. We had the Apple II lab, Oregon Trail, and then maybe the hacking part of that was going to the voice emulator and typing in words that it would make you say a bad word in class, and the teacher would be like, oh, that's not, So, it started out as a hobby, and you have, the emergence of, DEFCON, right? And there's just a very few amount of people there, and just all around the world, and it's grown and grown and grown, and now we have it's a pro career. You have a professional career. Uncle Kevin, now he's at the top of a big company, and Uncle Dave, he's got this. Look at him. He doesn't look like a hacker. He looks like a business accountant or something, right?
Looks like an accountant.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's gone from a hobby to a real professional career, and you're starting to see college classes come out for it. Like my alma mater, Louisiana Tech, they have a 4-year engineering hacking basically degree rolled up into what they call cyber engineering degree. So it's starting to become pro. You got any comments,
Yeah,
about how you started?
Well, with the Anarchist Cookbook, did you try to make can you say publicly if you tried to make a pipe bomb?
No, I didn't.
He won't admit it.
No.
When I was 8 years old, do you remember when you had a television that was the size of a piece of furniture in your home? And my mom probably in the kitchen doing something. I don't know where my siblings and my dad was, but I wanted to know how those people got in the TV. So what do you think I did? Grabbed one of my dad's flathead screwdrivers, started taking the back off. I did remember to turn the TV off first, but when I went to go and grab one of those vacuum tubes, what do you think happened? I burned myself, actually. It was hot. So I waited a little bit, still screwdriver in hand, finally pulled one out, looked at it, and went, oh shit, how does this go back in? They're going to kill me. So luckily, I put it back in, but there's the one thing I forgot to do, unplug the television. So thinking back to that time, and it's something I've never forgotten, I don't know if it was because of the burn or that I didn't get myself electrocuted or in trouble, it was, if there was a mentor, somebody who could show me the right way to do something with electrical engineering or, whatever the top technology was back then, because I was a kid, that would have been a big difference in my life. Then eventually progressing into school and, You know, it's kind of cool. You had an Apple, was it 2E?
Oh, that was it. Yeah, it was at our school. We
Yeah.
had them. Yeah.
My school had an IBM punch card machine that I had to sit there and do the little charts with the paper and sit on the machine and deal with the chads. So you guys had some high-tech stuff. That was cool. But then over time, you know, playing Ultima and Barge Tale and all these other games really kind of moved me into understanding how systems work so that we can, you know, add a little bit more memory, make the game boot. There was a problem. The disk couldn't be read. Remember when you had to, like, turn the floppy to get the holes lined up? Or I'm going to make this disk, you know, read-only now. Those fun things. Or put a sticker on it or something. So all of those kind of little things over time, and then getting on bulletin board systems, and then talking to people and like, what is that internet gateway and why is it so expensive? And things like that kind of also, you know, pushed me forward. But right, now it's a career.
Yeah, so, and now there's increased emphasis in the media. So that first one on the left, you know, that's the tabloid, but it's in 2000. Oh, hackers can turn your home computer into a bomb.
From miles away.
Right. And then one of my friends was on Fox News about when the Iranian hack, they were trying to get into these dams in New York. And, you know, when was hacking on Fox News? No, I did that one. Yeah. And then most recently, you know, now we're getting Mr. Robot, and it's won awards, and it's really becoming mainstream. It's really something else that we've seen as social, increased awareness, increased acceptance somewhat, and it's really exciting.
One of the concerns that we have, and you may have it as well, you know, if you look back historically with some of like the hacker movies and the way they portrayed certain things like a virus eating away at the display and, you know, silly things like that we know that are not real. But when Mr. Robot comes around, and, you know, there are other really cool movies that did a good job of portraying technology as is, but they still had to make it, you know, consumable for the general audiences, and then we watched it. But with Mr. Robot, and they're showing real tools and things that are like, you know, Rote 13 or some other kinds of fun, like things that we do during a CTF, it gets other people who don't quite understand this interested, and they go, well, I watch Mr. Robot, I'm a hacker, and I'm going to do the same things too. But that in a way is a good thing, but it's also something to be concerned about because they need to learn the right way to do it. You know, there's, I'm going to mention Russell Ackoff, he's an economist, and he does talk about the more you do something wrong, the wronger you become. But once you do something wrong, but you actually start to do it righter over time. So it's okay to make mistakes, like hackers do, to get better at what we do, as long as we're doing it the right way. And Mr. Robot's a great example of getting people interested in what we do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, workforce shortage, yeah.
Again, there's the CSO Online article that talked about the 0% of cybersecurity unemployment. 0%. We know that there are some people in cybersecurity that are unemployed. It's not exactly a zero, but there's still a lot of jobs out there, so it's really a short duration. It's part of the reason why I kind of got out of accounting and moved into IT and then InfoSec, because there's such a demand. And just recently with Speak with a Geek, they were in Vegas during InfoSec summer camp. They interviewed a bunch of people. We recommend that you take maybe a quick picture of this or go to the Bitly video trying to answer that question of how are we going to fill these 1 million positions. Very interesting video. It's worth it.
So hacking in education, how many of you have kids? Okay. Children are natural hackers, right? They ask why all the time. Why do we do this? How is this? My son asked me, well, you know, why is a doorknob, how is a doorknob made? You know, you're like, I don't know. Let's look it up on how it's made on, you know, YouTube or whatever. And they always question authority. So if I tell my kids no, they'll say, well, I don't like that. I'm going to go talk to mom, but they'll not tell me that part. And they'll go talk to mom about something and try to, you know, and that plays into they're persistent, right? If they want something, they're creative and they innovate, like building a ladder out of you know, toys to go get a cookie off the top of the refrigerator, you know. And they're social engineers. Like I said, hey, the dad said I can't do it, but and mom, may say, okay, well, you can go do it, or vice versa. They want to get what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I got some more stories. So, like social engineering, your kid, well, my oldest kid, we'll just call him /kid0, comes up to me and says, Mom said I can go and buy that, that purchase inside of Clash Royale. I'm sorry. He asks me, can I make that purchase within Clash Royale? And of course, I already know how the game's played. I go, well, what did your mom say? And he says, it's up to you. She might have already said no. Do I now need to do a check with the boss in charge? The other thing is they are innovative, right? This picture here is a young lady at a Hack for Kids. It was our first one that we did in 2014. And she's just taking things apart. And you can see, she's a girly girl, but she also wants to take the tech apart. I've done a soldering workshop with her where she was soldering up a DC Darknet badge, and she got burned, and she didn't kind of call it quits. And that might just be who she is, but she just was like, oh, okay, I got burned, let's keep going. And that was great because she wanted to see the progress of what she was building. Now, when it comes to the innovation, same /kid0. So we ground him from screens when he's, not doing the things he's supposed to do. But when he's not grounded, like he might use my wife's phone. So she'll unlock it, and he learned what shoulder surfing is. Okay, so she's like, I'm going to use Touch ID. Well, one day when he's on her phone, he's like, oh, Mom, I locked the phone by accident. Can you please enter in your passcode again to unlock it? And she's like, oh, okay, types it in. He actually registered his thumbprint to Touch ID. So you can see, grounded, how did you get on my phone? So they're very innovative when there's the motivation and the incentive to get what they want.
Yeah, and kids when they love to mash buttons, right? Have y'all seen this,
This is awesome.
thing from CNN? A 5-year-old boy hacks his dad's Xbox account by entering a bunch of spaces into the passcode. And whenever he entered a bunch of spaces, and you have to go pull up this video, it's terribly cute. But the kid, he puts all these spaces in, and he hits enter, and he jumps up, and he's like, yeah! And his dad's in InfoSec somehow, and he's like, oh, we got to go report this. And they gave him credit. Microsoft actually gave the boy credit for finding that vulnerability. But just him being persistent, just him, being really curious. And they've got a lot of time at that age, to focus on, those things. And we got a little video here. Is the audio? Yeah.
1492. Okay. And 1492.
Is it okay to share your password with people?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to share your passcode with people. He was about 2, and at that time, that's /kid2. He wasn't speaking too much, but he did learn how to pronounce numbers. He had the, again, the incentive and the motivation to unlock the tablet so we can play video games and watch videos on YouTube Kids. But it took us a little more than a year for him to want to have a new passcode. But what I love is the fact that now he's like 4 and he has a new passcode. He doesn't share it with anybody but me, not even Mom. So that means that they can learn because he realized it was important, but it's still an adorable video.
So my son, how many of you have ever heard of the Kano kit? It's a little bit different than a Raspberry Pi. And they put some really polished software in there, and it's really cool. And they have a lot of, they've got Scratch. And one of the things that you can do is use Scratch to program the game Pong and Minecraft. But in this example, my son, he decided, well, I can do this, and so he started putting this code together, and that's a screenshot of it. Let's see. There's a little thing there. Whenever the ball gets hit or the paddle gets hit, it changes color. And then he tried to put as many 9s as he could inside the code. And then he tried to make the ball like grow like the ball was completely off the screen big, and he made it change colors, and he made it like make sounds, and it's really driving Mom crazy because what are you doing in there? It's just making all this racket, and he's over there giggling, you know, and you know he's got this other part where his makes his paddle as big as the screen and makes the opponents shrink down to nothing, and then but you know he's like a little hacker, so you know but he's kind of troll. Look at his title. So, I mean, some of you would probably use that, right? You've probably heard of the threat bus. So, I mean, we're all kids at heart still. So, that's just one example of my son. So just seeing what you could do with code.
But,
yeah, exactly.
So, kind of going back to the education point, Hack for Kids was created. Well, there's a lot of organizations out there. Hack for Kids was not a unique idea. There was DEFCON Kids before it became Roots Asylum, and then Hack Kids in San Jose. And there's other people and organizations that have been doing this for a long time. But when we created Hack for Kids back in 2014, the idea was to get in front of these kids who were passionate about technology the way we are. We wanted them to learn how to do it the right way, even if they made mistakes, encourage mistakes. And then you know that term helicopter parents? It's the parents that are over their kids like, you know, you're doing it wrong. This is so easy. We tell them to back off. We have an area for them to sit. They can take out their laptop. We want the kids to learn in a very comfortable, free kind of environment. There's a lot of reasons in addition to this that we created Hack for Kids, but one story I have to tell you is when I was trying to get Kid Zero interested in programming, he already did some Scratch programming on his own. He didn't really know where else to go with it. So there was a young programmers meetup, not like about a half hour or so from our house. So let's go there. And we met, and there was one other kid who was 12 years old. And they started talking together. Back then, I think Kid Zero might have been like 8. So they're doing their thing. I'm talking to his mom. And the 12-year-old's name was Nick. And his parents have no education or work experience in technology. Like I think one of them was like a history teacher, and one of them might have been a math teacher. So there's a little bit of that crossover. But I'm like, where did this come from? And he's sitting there writing C++ code, and she's like, we have no idea. He wanted to learn how to code. He a bit of a reading disability in school. So when you're 9, I guess you're about 3rd grade or so, and he wasn't reading at the level that they were expecting him to. But he wanted to write code, so he taught himself how to read. He's one of those kinds of people who just learn differently. He taught himself how to read, to write C++ code, and he did it quite well. And when I asked him, I was like, oh, you ever tried Python? And his response was so mature. It was, well, yeah, I have, but it's too strict on indentation. I was gobsmacked. That was a 12-year-old. So like, we got to do something to bring kids like Nick together that have a lot in common and can actually collaborate or share ideas or whatever. And that, to me, was kind of like fanning that flame and really kind of igniting it even further. But yeah, there's a lot going on. You could talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Interrupt, the Cyber Patriot. How many people have ever participated in that? So you got a few. Okay, great. I mean, it's just a lot of these different examples. And they're starting to pop up, and that's a good sign. So you've got this case study that we want to talk about.
More stories. So we thought, is the first one up? Oh.
No.
So that's Tinker. That's the Hack for Kids mascot, named by the Tyros, which we call the kids. If you're not familiar with the term Tyro, it just means someone who's basically a student or learning. Padawan sounds pretty good, but I think there would have been some issues, legal, in different companies. So we try to avoid that term. But Tyros are just the kids that go. So I'm going to tell you a little story about Bob. We met Bob. Bob was 14 at the time last year in Indianapolis when we did a Hack for Kids there. He plays with computers and stuff, video games and things like that at home. But when he came in, gave him a quick orientation on what we had out and what we were doing, he went right to the crypto corner. And he just never did it before. He didn't quite know what it was about, but for you, it was like decoding binary, base 64. We had a ROT 13 in there. We had some other symbols. That was kind of frequency analysis. And Bob Did not want to leave from that spot. We go to lunch and we come back about an hour later, and Bob is standing outside our door because it was locked. And he was waiting. He wanted to continue. I was like, have you ever done this before? He's like, no, but I love it, and I had no idea that this even existed. So, and he stayed there and he went through all the 8 challenges. And that's kind of, if that's something that you can do, try to expose these young people, or even if they're in middle school or high school, to something that they didn't know existed. That is a way that we can get people more involved with STEM with an H, or STEM, or however you want to say it. We got a lot of crazy videos on that. But so Bob loved crypto.
Yeah. So you got Alice.
So Alice was, and Bob went from Indianapolis to Chicago. We intentionally made more challenges for him, and he's been to 4 Hack for Kids, which is pretty cool. And we've just added more things because we know he loves it. Oh, another part of that story is, if you got kids, and even if your friends got kids, or even nephews and uncles, or what have you, if you're an aunt or an uncle, when your kids come home from something, you go, oh, how was it? What'd you do? Nothing. What'd you learn? Nothing. All right, good. It's good talking to you. Bob did the same thing with his dad, but I wrote Bob's dad an email and said, by the way, he impressed us. This is what he did. This is how long he did it. Did you guys talk about this? And Dad was like, I had no idea. He just said he had fun. He never said what he did. I'm going to go nurture this. And at that point, also for us, that was kind of that realization of what we were doing a little further is we're teaching people more about themselves that they didn't know, as well as people close to them. Very, very important. So on to Alice. So Alice is a 12-year-old girl I met in Detroit this year, and she had a bit of a rough childhood. Both parents were addicted to different kinds of chemicals, and they just kind of imagine how that can go in Detroit. And eventually she got into the foster system where she lived for some time until she was adopted later by some people that worked in IT. And they were very, very patient with her just to kind of adjust to a different lifestyle, just things that, I don't want to say normal, but would be expected for a 12-year-old, she never had. She wasn't used to being in a classroom, things like that. And it was a very sad story, but when she was very comfortable, her mom took her to Hack for Kids in Detroit. And she had an interest, or has an interest in technology, but never really did much, more than maybe using a browser. So what I thought was really cool is, thanks. So just the first one.
Yeah.
So she's never really built Legos as a sumo bot before. So we had a sumo bot competition, and she had a great time. She built her bot and tested her bot, did all the R&D, and was battling her bot. And not only did she have a good time and learned a lot about herself, she also placed first. So she got a nice $25 gift card, which, considering her past, that's huge. Big difference. So the other things that, we also did an online CTF. So she got into crypto, so we had simple encoding challenges as well as some things that were a bit more advanced. She did the easiest encoding and she did the hardest encoding. She also then did the information gathering part, which is kind of like the intro to pen testing. What's the server's IP? What web server is it running? What are the DNS servers? Basic things that we know we can do and don't even think twice. Brand new to a lot of these kids. She did all of those. Completely swept the lock-picking challenges. So we had from 1 to 6 pins and handcuffs. She did them all. And then we even had one of our prototype badge right here. So the Tyros had their own white badge, which also had another encoded message that was encoded in Braille that they also had to figure out. Now, Alice's mom, understanding that, it's easy to kind of give your kid the answer if you want to do well, and there's prizes at the end, but there's like a term that we use, it's just, you want coaching or time? So when we see that the Tyros are stuck, do you want me to give you a hint, or do you want to spend more time trying it on your own? And a lot of times they want time, but sometimes they ask for some coaching. And that's very important because it feels like they're still in control, because they are. But then with the badge, she was able to figure that one out as well. And what's great is this is her first technology event, and she tied for first place with the CTF. So very, very cool. It was a great day for her because then she got to pick the whatever prize she wanted, and I think it was a Kah kit, which she's like now she's got her own kind of little portable computer, which was actually pretty cool.
Oh,
so we have the main event in Chicago. If you're kind of thinking a little bit about Hack for Kids, and you might want to bring somebody that you know who's between the age of 7 and 17. We started in Chicago, but we partner with other organizations like Circle City Con, which is Indianapolis, BrewCon, which is Brussels and kind of really Ghent. So this is our second year with them. And then also GerCon, which comprises about half of that first row. We're doing our second year at GerCon, which is also pretty awesome. We got workshops, and we're doing something new. We try to do something different at all of them, but we kind of bring back some things that we know the kids love, like snap circuits and taking tech apart. We're doing a crypto party. So all the kids are going to get their own Keybase account, which I think is actually pretty cool. They gave us a whole bunch of invites and some coloring books. But if you look at the timeline, the first year when we started in 2014, we had 40 tyros, which first year event, no marketing, all really word of mouth. We were pretty happy. In 2015, across 4 events, we had 115 tyros participate. And this year, so far, we have 66, and we're projecting another 100 between GerCon and we're doing a partnership with Sector and B-Sides Toronto, so we'll be there October 16th in Toronto, and the folks from BrewCon in October. Oh, crap. I already had one of these before. Do we have to drink it now? We're doing a talk about kids, man. That ain't PC. So for all the trolls out there, let us know. You need to know, this is a rule of DerbyCon, that if you've been iced during your talk, you have to drink. It is so hot! Oh, God. Cheers.
is it? Will it even?
The second one for the day.
Okay.
Mazel tov, l'chaim, brother.
All right. You gotta hold your pinky up.
Oh yeah, I gotta be classy about this. It is Smirnoff Ice Original. The other one was Tropical Fruit. Wonderful. I'm done with this slide.
So one of the things that we want to do is engage students. And that any of you ever taught any kind of class, soldering class, or any kind of programming class? Yeah. You have to keep your kids engaged. So you're being a mentor, but you also want the kids to have a leadership role. So if you put them in teams, right? And sometimes some kids have leadership. What was Reuben Paul, right? He gave a talk here 2 years ago. 2 years ago. I mean, he was 8, I think, at the time. That was pretty awesome. That's really good leadership from a kid that really has a passion for hacking. You know, now we have to do like different activities to expand their skills. You know, things like Raspberry Pis, crypto challenges. We've talked about that. Python for Kids. You know, the No Starch Press. They have a lot of books for kids.
A lot of great kids' books.
Yeah. So learn to program with Minecraft. That's cool. I mean, it's like programming with Legos, but
you can do that
virtual
from
ones,
scratch too,
yeah.
right? And then CTFs. Yeah, I just wanted to interject on that. So our DNS server is down right now, but when it's back up, you can go to or direct your kids to ctf.hackforkids.org, and that's HAK4KIDZ, and we're going to have a lot of the same challenges which the kids have done at a conference. So we'd like to keep them up, and we do we do welcome people who are online that are not at the events to still do the challenges. They're really fun, and you know, if you're not at the event, unfortunately you can't win a prize, but we're trying to figure out a way that we can do something where maybe, you know, for a month we'll say, okay, go, do the best you can, and then we can like ship something off to somebody. It's all about incentives.
Some of the keys to learning, right? Learning is important. Reading, lots of reading, right? But remember, some kids really need that hands-on. There's no real right way that kids learn. It's like trying to shove people into a standardized test and make an elephant climb a tree, right? Same with kids wanting to learn, even adults too. That when the kids are young, they have a spongy mind. They really pick up things quickly, and that's really amazing to see. They also need a community. Whether they're a community of people in person, or they have a once a month meetup of some kind, or maybe a Slack channel for kids. I don't even know if you can do that. I guess you could.
I guess you could, but I think, obviously being moderated,
Sure.
language and things, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And then mentorship. That is another thing to show, hey, the old curmudgeons that's done this for a long time. What have you learned, and what can we learn from you? And how can we teach the new generation that's coming on to lead the way, right?
Or as they get older, they grow into a mentorship role. We find that to be really cool when kids have gone to a Hack for Kids a couple of times, and then somebody else is new, whether they're older or younger, they're now kind of showing them the ropes. That's a community. So somebody hit me up in social media this year and said, you guys work a lot with young people. Oh, you beat me. I was trying to beat you. I'm debating whether I should just chug it or keep talking. What do you think? Chug it.
Kind of like Sprite. Kind of like Sprite, maybe. That's been in the car. It's kind of like,
Wow.
like it was left in the trunk.
In Arizona. So somebody hit me up on social media and said, why don't you do something with some more senior or junior high school students, give them an opportunity to go to DEF CON. They're really into it, and it's one of those things that's a cost factor just to even get into DEF CON, as well as traveling out there. And thought about it a little bit. Some people, even on social media, felt differently, where it's not a good idea to send kids to DEF CON. But meanwhile, there's been DEF CON Kids for several years now, and when things are done properly, it could be a positive experience. So we did the GoFundMe, which is the screenshot that you see here. We put together an application, and we wanted to make sure it was somebody who was going to be going into IT and or InfoSec, and really, like, not just academically did well, but showed that they did a lot of extracurricular activities. I don't know if you guys are familiar with IMSA, the Illinois Math and Science Academy. We had 3 applicants from there who were selected because they were just not just into IT, like some were playing instruments and they were leaders in clubs and started things like that. But one of the students that stood out the most, he was he was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts. He did the Cyber Patriot Challenge for 3 years in a row, and by his 3rd year, he was captain of the team, and they took first place in the Nationals. And he didn't get first place in the Nationals until after he was already selected. So it was pretty amazing to hear that later from his mom. It made us feel like really good that we made really good choices and selections on who's going to go there to represent themselves, their parents, their schools, their other organizations they're a member of, and Hack for Kids. And right now they're finishing up some papers that we're going to make public once we scrub some names for privacy reasons. But they had a really tremendous experience. They weren't there to drink all the booze and hack all the things. They were really like participating in contests. They were going to talks. I was checking in on them every day. What have you been doing? Everything okay? And it turned out to be a really positive experience for a lot of people. And we had an adult chaperone there too.
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone? Bueller? So you're still here with us. That's great.
We lost a few.
No, we lost a few. That's okay. So we have some challenges that we want to talk about. Hacking sometimes is viewed in a negative light still, right? And you read the comments and in the news stories, people really have a negative thing about it. So that's one of the things we got to overcome. There's often a lack of funding. Maker spaces or no hack spaces, like Mississippi. As far as I know, we don't have any maker spaces at all. I think our public libraries, I think 3 of them are just now getting a 3D printer. Especially in rural areas. So my buddy Chris Sanders runs Rural Technology Fund. So even just education, period, in the rural places is hard. Some of those kids really take to, they have the internet. They can learn that way, and they're really taken to the idea. And we got to reach those kids too. And that's one of the challenges we have. Another challenge that we have is very little metrics. Prior events, how can we do it? Improve. You to improve something, you got to measure those things.
So we like to do, we started with paper surveys. We moved to SurveyMonkey as a way to collect information about overall experiences. But then there's the complexity of you have one tyro, they're doing something, they may have never done it before, and we like to just get very simple information like, did they complete it or not? Like, for example, the Lockpick Village, we have a spreadsheet with pins 1 through 6 and handcuffs, and we keep it anonymous as possible. It's like, check a box if this person sitting in that seat completed these items. And then we could look at how many people went to that activity, how far they got. Maybe they just picked a handcuff and said, I'm done, and that's all they really cared about. And that's fine. Or even Python for Kids. We try to do measurement on just doing basic exercises, challenges. We even threw in a Fibonacci series, and nobody was able to complete that. Is it too hard for them? Or they just kind of read it and said, not for me. So these things are really, really complex because you never know when they come back. Let's go back to Bob. Bob returns to another event. We don't really see his individual progress. So we're trying to come up with a way to do that. And being online might be the best way to do it because then we see when they start an activity, how long it took to completion, if they stopped it and came back later, some kind of reward system. So metrics are difficult, they're very complex. Surveys are nice, but you need more data.
Same with the reporting. What's the baseline? What's correlations? There's they're like in regular school, the kids go to school, they have this standardized testing. That's well known and maybe overdone. So we want to be able to measure how they're learning, how things trend. So hacking. I don't know if that's ever been measured, actually. That's a good question.
Is it measured by how many books you've published, or is it measured by how you've impacted the community and moved things forward?
Yeah, exactly. The crux of this is we need you. Two of us can talk about it. We can invent a word, STEM, but we really need you to do it. So some conclusions. We think hacking is exciting. And it's emerging. Hacking education is emerging. So it's still kind of new, really. Lasting impact for youth is great because a lot of us have really good jobs and they're real exciting. And we want our kids to be able to have that opportunity as well. And there's so much opportunity. The value of hacking education folded in with regular STEM and STREAM and all that. Having that questioning attitude, say, how can I take this Internet of Things thing and do something it wasn't supposed to do, and then maybe improve on it, and break it and improve on it again, make it more robust, something like that. There's still so much more to do. So we have to have a theme song, instead of drinking all the ice, that's not any good. Ice? Yeah, drink all the Kool-Aid, hack all the things. Oh yeah. So is he growing? Yeah, he grew. Yeah, he grew. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the talk. We want you to think about this in your mind as you go back home, as you go back to your communities, as you go back to your kids. You're probably already doing some of this stuff. It's great. So we want you to vote in your mind, vote with your actions as part of our political campaign to introduce hacking into education. Make STEM great again. David Chris, 2016.
Vote STEM.
Yes.
We're trying to still, like, with an H or STEM, like you're clearing your throat. Some other way to identify it. STEM. Yeah. STEM. That's the other one, like deep bronchitis.
So, we've got some time for questions, I think. We've got about 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Question.
Not so much a question as a suggestion is that most state and federal grants, so most of these places will private nonprofits, so there's no way to make money off of it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. If you kind of go back to that slide with Obama and some of the things that they've allocated funds, and I did some research earlier, I think it was a little bit late last year and earlier this year, of what grant programs are out there. And there's a lot of grant programs for STEM specifically, as well as cybersecurity related education. So even if you want to start a makerspace and you make it like a 501c3, which Hack for Kids is, so I got some experience dealing with this and kind of understanding like the ins and outs, and that key phrase is also very important. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, social engineer the game, the wording. Oh.
But a lot of them also want an impact report. They want some kind of results. They're not just going to give you money just because you said, this is what we're doing.
We got any other questions out there? All right. Well, we appreciate you coming. Think about it, and if you print one suggestion is one of the things you can do is if your state doesn't have computer science as a core science, then where it's an elective, like in Mississippi, that's a problem. So maybe we can start doing things like that too.
USB, 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 USB. Thank you, folks. Good job.